Hi there. So we are going to go over a new form called General Information. And notice, of course, my internet has to be slow. General Information and Notice to Buyers and Sellers. Okay, so this is new has been updated as of June 24th, 2024. So this is just letting all parties know whether you're a buyer or you're a seller. If the property is outside of the city limits, there's always a chance it'll be annexed. The appraisal will be probably ordered by a lender, and they will determine the value, and if it is worth, in the opinion of the bank, the value that the buyer is paying. It is not the same as an inspection. They will go and inspect the property for value, but not do a thorough home inspection. Brokers. Each person represents different parts of the party. There's a buyer's agent, there's a seller's agent. Now, in the event that the both agents work for the same company, then the broker will act as an intermediary. But parties are encouraged to always seek the assistance of an attorney to understand everything. Compensation. Compensation means commission fee or other consideration for real estate services. So the compensation is not set by law, and it is fully negotiable. There are many different compensation models that different companies use. There's flat fee, hourly fees, and then just only fees for certain tasks. Now, I'm a full service agent. I charge 6% commission. Not everybody does. Not everybody provides the full service that I do. And I highly encourage the compensation of the buyer's agent for bringing us the buyer, because that will exponentially increase your ability to sell the property. You attract the most amount of buyers. Otherwise, if you do not compensate the buyer's agent, then the buyer has to compensate their agent, and not everybody can. And that's going to drastically reduce the pool of buyers that you will be able to attract. Now, it says buyer may pay their broker, or you can offer to pay the buyer's agent. But like I said, I think you attract more bees with honey, right? So if the buyer has any environmental concerns, such as general, like things like formaldehyde, insulation, toxic waste, environmental matters, lead-based paint, mold, oak wilt, we don't see that here because we're in the desert, or noise, they can get a specialized inspector for those items. Expansive soils. The soils do contract and expand the longer a house sits on a property. The more settled it becomes, the newer it is, you will see hairline cracks due to settling. And of course, you have a right to get an inspector to give you their opinion on that. FERPTA. This is a foreign investment. So if you're a foreign person, the IRS may hold up to a certain portion of the proceeds to pay for taxes. And then the foreign person has to file their taxes, make amends with that, and then the title company is able to release that. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it if you were a foreign national. If it's in a flood hazard, floodways, or and flood insurance is required, you need to check with your insurance company for those things. And we have a special flood hazards area form. If the house is in a historic or conservation district, we need to let you know as well. You have the right to get an inspection done. Buyer has a right to get an inspection done, I should say. And we don't have the skills, knowledge, or expertise in those areas. That's why they have an inspector that's licensed in the state of Texas. Repairs, buyers and sellers shall negotiate those. And the buyer has a right to do a walkthrough if the seller did any repairs, to make sure that those repairs were done correctly, or just to walk through the property right before closing to make sure nothing changed. If the house is in an HOA and a mandatory homeowners association, then you need to get the disclosures for that. We will, of course, help you with that. Mineral interests. If there's any valuable minerals under the ground, then we need to provide a form including that covers those interests, if they convey with the property or not. We will be entering the house in the multiple listing service, and I will send you a draft for your approval before it actually goes live. Okay. It'll show information like square footage, taxes, school boundaries, that sort of thing. If you alter the property, added a room, added a pool, whatever, we need to know if you pulled a permit for those things. Sometimes you don't know, but if you do know, you need to let us know whether one was pulled or not. Possession will not happen until we close and the funds hit the title company. Now, in the event that the buyer needs to move in before that, or the seller needs to stay longer, we need to make sure we have a temporary lease, okay? Otherwise, it can create a very big headache. We have a form for that. Property insurance, it's up to the buyer to shop around and get whatever insurance company they want. They have different coverage, different deductibles, all of that kind of stuff. Failure to obtain property insurance can delay your closing, okay? Property values. We cannot guarantee that the house will appraise or sell for a certain amount because it is cyclical and they can go up and down, okay? And then of course, it's up to the buyer, what the buyer is willing to pay and what the seller is willing to pay, right? Residential service contract, also known as the home warranty. So it's important that you know that you have the right to get or offer a home warranty. And there's different companies in town. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different, it's almost like an insurance policy, right? There's an upfront fee for the policy, and then there's like a copay or a service fee, right? Restrictions on the property near an international border. If your house sits near a border, you need to know that there's always a chance that it can be taken up by, the government. You should consult an attorney if that's the case. We cannot guarantee what schools a child attends. It is very important that the buyer check with the school district to see what schools fall in their area. If you have a septic tank or on-site sewer facility, you need to disclose that. We have a form for that. If you're worried about sex offenders in the neighborhood, you can go to this website and check to see if they're, what sex offenders are in that particular area. Square footage. Now, we usually get square footage either from an appraisal or central appraisal district. Now, you can send 3 monkeys in to measure and you'll get 3 different measurements. We cannot guarantee square footage. It is simply an estimate. If you are concerned, you could have the right as a buyer to go in and measure yourself. Statutory tax district. If it is in a special tax district, we need to notify you as well. Seller needs to notify the buyer. If you know anything about that as a seller, contact me, please. Such surveillance. If the seller has any kind of recording equipment, audio or visual, please let me know because we need to notify the buyer. We do not want to run the risk of getting sued. Everybody should consult an attorney before proceeding with that. Survey. It shows the location of the boundaries of the land where the house sits on the land. Any encroachments, any encumbrances. If the rock wall or the fence sits over the neighbors or too far into your property, we need to disclose that. We need to see if we have a copy of that. If you're a seller, please provide one. If you are a buyer, we will do everything we can to get a copy of that for you. If one is not available, then a new one will need to be ordered. Especially if you have a loan. Synthetic stucco, it is used quite often. There's always a possibility that moisture can cause wood rot and be trapped within the layers between the stucco and the wood frame. We don't see it as much in Texas. Well, we don't see it as much in El Paso because of the desert, but that is something to be aware of. The seller will be responsible for prorated taxes from the beginning of the year up to the day of closing. The buyer will get a credit at closing for that. If there's any taxes that are due, the title company will ensure that those get paid. Termination option, that is built into the Texas contracts. If a buyer chooses to have a termination option, which most buyers do, they will usually use that time to get a home inspection and to negotiate repairs. The contract says as is, but it does not keep the buyer from using or exercising this termination option. So if the buyer terminates during that option, they have the right to walk. The only money they lose is probably inspection money and the option fee that was paid for the seller. The earnest money should be reimbursed to the buyer. We usually don't deal with Tidewaters because we are not oceanfront property. Title insurance, we should call that title insurance policy because it's a title insurance policy that covers title issues in the event that something shows up later, okay? The buyer always has a right to do an abstract of title. It traces the chain of ownership. I've never had a client need that, but that's an option. That's usually when you have a property that's been conveyed generation after generation within the same family and they didn't record the chain of ownership. Seller needs to know what utilities are applicable to that area. And buyer needs to disclose if they have all those utilities as well. Seller should disclose. Seller also needs to make sure that all utilities stay on the property all the way up to the day of closing. Water level fluctuations, we don't really see that because we don't have anything that change. We don't have lakefront property, and we also don't have major facilities that can change the amount of water that we have for the city. Okay. Water wells, if it applies, we will discuss that with you about testing for water. I don't see that a whole lot here. And wire fraud. It is very important that a buyer or a seller do not convey information over an unsecured format. If you get an email from a title company saying that wiring instructions have changed, please do not respond. Pick up the phone immediately, call me, let me know. Okay. And if there's anything else that we need to disclose, we would enter it here. So if you have any questions, let me know. Talk to you soon. Bye.